Prime Minister meets Yunus amid strained ties. Bangladesh raises Hasina extradition with Prime Minister. India raises a tax on Hindus in Bangladesh. Meet first since Sheikh Hasina's ouster. Top focus at 5 Live with Gaurav Sawant.
So Bangladesh had sought this meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. This was the first meeting between Prime Minister Modi and the Chief Advisor to Bangladesh administration, Professor Md Yunus, since the regime change in Dhaka last year. India made one thing very clear. India supports a democratic, stable, peaceful, progressive and inclusive Bangladesh. Professor Yunus raised the issue of ousted Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina being sheltered in India, targeting the regime from there and her extradition to Bangladesh. India heard Bangladesh on this. Is this meeting an icebreaker? Should we look at it as an icebreaker? Will Bangladesh crack down on radical Islamists, prosecute and punish them as India seeks to protect minorities, including Hindus in Bangladesh? And what about the future of Sheikh Hasina, who is in India? We'll talk about that in greater detail. I'm Gaurav Sawant, as always. Let's get started. Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Thailand for the BIMSTEC Summit. Now, there was a bilateral meeting with the Chief Advisor to Bangladesh administration, Nobel laureate Professor Md Yunus, on the sidelines of the BIMSTEC Summit. In this meeting, India raised several concerns with Bangladesh. The situation in that country since the ouster of the Sheikh Hasina government. India reiterated that New Delhi seeks a stable, peaceful, progressive and inclusive Bangladesh. India not only sought protection of all minorities, including Hindus in Bangladesh, but also arrest, prosecution and action against the perpetrators of that violence. Bangladesh raised the issue of not just the Teesta waters, but also the extradition of the ousted Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, who barely managed to leave Bangladesh as radical Islamists reached her house and escaped to India. We bring you more in this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi meets Bangladesh's Chief Advisor Md Yunus on the sidelines of the BIMSTEC Summit in Bangkok on Friday. This was their first meeting since the ouster of Sheikh Hasina from Bangladesh. India took up the issue of atrocities against Hindus in the neighboring country during the talks.
माइनॉरिटीज़ की अल्पसंख्यकों की जो वहाँ पे हालत है और इस विषय को लेके प्रधानमंत्री जी ने इस मुद्दे को खुल के सामने रखा। जो जिम्मेदारी है वो बांग्लादेश सरकार की है और उन्होंने आशा जताई कि बांग्लादेश सरकार इस विषय पे अपनी जिम्मेदारियों पे खरी उतरेगी और इन चीज़ों को आगे इनकी जांच करेगी।
The Yunus regime, on its part, raised the asylum given to Sheikh Hasina by India.
আমাদের যেগুলো স্বার্থ সংশ্লিষ্ট যতগুলো বিষয় ছিল সবগুলো বিষয়ই আমাদের চিফ অ্যাডভাইজার মহোদয় সেই মিটিংয়ে বলেছেন। যেমন শেখ হাসিনার প্রত্যর্পণ বিষয়ে কথা হয়েছে, শেখ হাসিনা যে ওইখানে বসে অনেক ধরনের ইনসেন্ডিয়ারি কমেন্ট করছেন সেগুলো বিষয়ে কথা হচ্ছে।
शेख हसीना का सवाल है और उनके सिलसिले में जो बांग्लादेश की ओर से हमारे पास इस मुद्दे पे एक निवेदन आया है। इस समय इस विषय पे कुछ और कहना मेरे लिए उचित नहीं होगा।
Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's support for a democratic, stable, peaceful and progressive Bangladesh. The talks between the two leaders takes place just days after Yunus invited China to expand its influence in the region.
7 states of India, eastern part of India, called Seven Sisters. They are landlocked country, landlocked region of India. They have no way to reach out to the ocean. We are the only guardian of the ocean.
In the meeting on Friday, the two leaders appeared to break months of chill. Yunus presented a throwback photo to Prime Minister Modi. The portrait showed Prime Minister Modi presenting a gold medal to Yunus at the 102nd Indian Science Congress in 2015. With Geeta Mohan, Bureau Report, India Today.
So I want to talk a little more about India seeking a democratic, stable, peaceful, progressive and inclusive Bangladesh. Clear indication that Bangladesh is right now neither stable nor peaceful, clearly not progressive given the fact that radical Islamists are on center stage, clearly not inclusive with minorities including Hindus being targeted, being forced out of their jobs, and we're giving you those images and statistics of how minorities, especially Hindus, have systematically been targeted under the garb of being Sheikh Hasina's supporters. But is that actually true? We'll get you the ground reality on this broadcast, because when the Prime Minister of India insists that people-to-people cooperation is one of the main cooperations between India and Bangladesh, people of India are seeing what's happening in Bangladesh, and it's clearly unacceptable. Take, for example, in August 2024 itself, after the ouster of Sheikh Hasina, ISKCON Center was targeted in Khulna division. It was set on fire. Why should a temple be set on fire? Incident destroyed the temple, sacred deities. Why should Bhagwan Jagannath's statue idol be vandalized? Or Balbhadra or Devi Subhadra? Why should that happen if it's a political protest? Why are temples being targeted? Again, in August, ISKCON temple and Kali Mata temple were targeted. Devotees were forced to seek shelter. 2 Hindu councillors were targeted. They were killed. A temple in the Navgrah Badi was burnt in Chittagong in Bangladesh. Is this political? Or are elements not just in Bangladesh, but their apologists in India trying to justify it? February 2025, so it wasn't just in the heat of the moment then. February 2025, in Firozpur in Bangladesh, a Muslim mob attacked a Hindu shop, vandalized the shop, targeted a Durga temple. We'll show you images how Hindus were pleading for help. Again, the Radha Govinda temple in Patukhali, that was targeted in Bangladesh. Ramakrishna Mission was attacked in Bangladesh. So, is this political? If it's political, why are temples being targeted? Unless calling it political is just an excuse to give cover fire to radical Islamists who now rule Bangladesh. I have Geeta Mohan joining me on this special broadcast. Also, our Ambassador Veena Sikri, India's former High Commissioner to Bangladesh, joins me on this special broadcast. Ambassador Sikri, how would you look at India's statement that India supports a democratic, stable, peaceful, progressive and inclusive Bangladesh? Is India telling Dhaka, New Delhi telling Dhaka and Bangkok that you are none of these, high time you become this? Ambassador Sikri, can you hear me?
I can hear you, but what is happening? It's 10 minutes now. I'm sitting here on this channel.
Go on, Ambassador Sikri. Ambassador Sikri, when India says we support a stable, peaceful, progressive and inclusive Bangladesh, what's India's message? How would you read this between the lines?
Well, India wants early elections in Bangladesh. This is the need of the hour. We have said that India wants a democratic, stable, peaceful, prosperous and inclusive Bangladesh. Now, these are the 5 elements. We have to analyze each of these 5 elements and see. When we look at the first one, the democracy, the very first one is that this regime, are they capable of organizing elections? For me, it seems that they are unwilling or unable to organize elections. First of all, they're not even a caretaker government because they do not fulfill the mandates of being a neutral non-party regime. They have the Islamist parties within them. They have the Hizb ut-Tahrir, they have the Islami Andolan Bangladesh, they have the Hifadhat-e-Islam, and you have the Jamaat-e-Islami, which is the real power behind the throne of Md Yunus. Md Yunus is unable to act on his own without the Jamaat-e-Islami's clearance. So I think that the first thing to be seen is that unless there are democratically held elections in Bangladesh, which include all the political parties, which are free and fair, the situation in Bangladesh is going to continue like one of anarchy. where there's no law and order, where the economy is totally in the doldrum, there's unemployment, factories are closed, inflation is high, and they are trying to get all their supplies for the factories from other countries other than the traditional India, let us say like cotton or cotton yarn or cotton fabric, but it's proving to be impossible for them. So I think that we have to call this government out, call the Yunus regime out on their ability to, or with their willingness to organize free, fair, and inclusive elections at the very earliest. Today in the BIMSTEC Summit in Bangkok, we did see that Md Yunus in his speech said that he's going to have elections at the earliest. Now, here, this use of the word earliest was a move away from his earlier statements in Bangladesh, where he said, oh, it'll be at the end of this year or by June of next year. Very, very vague. But he also said in his speech in BIMSTEC Summit today that we are mandated to do reforms in Bangladesh. Now, this is my question. Who has mandated them to do reforms? This is not the job of an interim regime to do reforms. Reforms are the task of an elected parliament. So this mandate, this so-called mandate that Md Yunus spoke about, really does not exist. So actually, they should give up this whole idea of reforms and just focus on getting in a caretaker government, which will be non-party, which will be neutral, and which will conduct the elections within 3 months. This is what has to happen in Bangladesh, and I sincerely hope
Ambassador Sikri,
it happens.
Sheikh Hasina barely survived by the skin of her teeth as she escaped from Bangladesh. Radical Islamists were practically at her door. Now Dhaka wants India to extradite her. They spoke of Pratyarpan as advisor to their foreign minister said. How would you view this? Is Dhaka also seeking to gag her in India when they say that she's been making, in their words, incendiary speeches sitting in India?
First of all, the whole process of extradition is a highly complex legal process. I think so far as I know, Bangladesh has only sent one note verbal saying, please send her back. Now, that is not the extradition process. The Bangladesh, within their own country, they have to conduct a full legal process. Trying her, what are they trying her for? What are they accusing her of? Even the UN report, the UN Volker Turk report, said quite clearly that the evidence we have been provided with does not enable us to assign any individual guilt. So there is no guilt at all with Sheikh Hasina for what she has done. So I think this whole business of extradition is a non-starter. They can talk as much as they want about it. But the question is that the extradition process means a full legal process in their country. Then they give the details to us. Then we do a full legal process here. It is not an easy process. It is very long. It is very complex. It is fully judicial. So the other part of it is that in the meanwhile, the Yunus regime themselves are making all these very strong anti-India rhetoric, which our Prime Minister even referred to today, that this does not help the relationship at all. I do not think there is a single evidence from Bangladesh present regime that they want good relations with India. They are talking about, when Yunus went to China, he spoke to the Chinese businessmen a few days ago, 4 or 5 days ago, and he talks about the northeastern states of India and says, Bangladesh controls their access to the Indian Ocean, and please take the northeastern states of India as an extension of the Chinese economy. Now, is this possible? Can a part of sovereign India, northeastern states are a sovereign integral part of India, can it be offered by Yunus to China like this? This has caused a lot of furor in India. And today we have seen another statement today.
Yes, that statement was meant to annoy India or lead to a response from India, because Md Yunus wasn't born yesterday. He knows that he's making a statement about a sovereign country and he has no right to do that, and yet he did. So is he deliberately doing this? He does not want good relations with India, and yet, since it's BIMSTEC, they sought a meeting and a meeting was granted. Will this only embolden radical Islamists in Bangladesh?
Well, I think the way in which our Prime Minister conducted the meeting, and he was very, very clear, he was very, very frank, and he laid all the cards on the table. There can be no anti-India rhetoric. You cannot blame, there must be democracy, peaceful, stable, and inclusive democracy in Bangladesh, that you cannot go on talking. Bangladesh keeps talking about so-called border killings, but it is their people who come and attack the BSF at night, and then when somebody gets hurt, then they, scream blue murder and say that this is what has happened. So I think all these issues have been called out, but now it is for India to read the writing on the wall, that can this Yunus regime, which is an illegal, unconstitutional regime, can they be expected to conduct free, fair and inclusive elections in Bangladesh? It seems to me to be highly unlikely. And, they're just staying on their own. There's absolutely no reason why they should be staying on, claiming that they're going to do reforms which are totally outside their mandate. So I think India has read the Riot Act to Mohammed Yunus. And I think that in the coming days and weeks, we have to be very careful, monitor the situation, because the Mohammed Yunus regime has shown no interest at all in having good relations with India. They make anti-Indian statements all the time. They blame India for all their problems, and they have shown no interest in having good neighborly relations. We have been giving them rice, 50,000 tons, 100,000 tons. We have been, willing to sell them all the traditional exports from India, like cotton yarn, cotton fabric. But Bangladesh is trying their best to get it from other countries, and it's not working out because it comes out to be much more expensive from other countries. So they are in a very difficult situation. The main thing is that this regime does not reflect the wills of the people of Bangladesh. And
stay with me for a moment. I want to also quickly bring into this conversation my colleague Geeta Mohan, who joins us from Colombo, of course. And Geeta has also been speaking to her sources in the Ministry of External Affairs. Geeta, we heard Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri, what India sought from Bangladesh, but tell us what sources are telling you. What was the conversation like? What are India's expectations of Bangladesh? And, India said, yes, we've heard you on the issue of extradition of Sheikh Hasina. But what is India's stance, Geeta?
Well, India is very clear. She's a guest. And a lot has changed in geopolitics, Gaurav. India does not really have to or will not be feeling the pressure from Washington, D.C. as it did earlier. The Trump administration is very clear on what has happened in Bangladesh was absolutely wrong. So India stands in good stead over here when it comes to hosting Sheikh Hasina. The change that is required and has to be brought about in Bangladesh with an election, with the due process of an election. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Indian government very clear on these counts. So while the Indian side spoke about minorities and the situation of minorities, there are certain quarters that were pushing for Sheikh Hasina and the extradition. The laws are very clear that the laws should apply. And since there is no process that has been initiated, there's nothing that India can do but wait to see what Bangladesh and the Bangladesh's interim caretaker government is really going to do in conducting of elections, and in the meanwhile ensuring security and safety of minorities in Bangladesh, as also ensuring that India and Bangladesh remain engaged irrespective of who controls Dhaka.
Ambassador Sikri, Bangladesh is dependent on India from energy to electricity, from rice to cotton, and yet we see a rather hostile attitude for 8 months and counting. First Bangladesh goes to Pakistan, tries to play the Pakistan card, then it tries to play the China card, and we continue to accommodate Bangladesh since we've had a historic relationship with them. What is it that India needs to do to send across that message that, one, this is unacceptable, there will be costs on this, and yet ensure it doesn't go into the Chinese orbit? Because we've seen many neighbors cut their nose to spite their face.
Look, Chinese orbit is what Mohammed Yunus is seeking. There is no question about it. Let's not make any bones about it. Yunus is seeking the Chinese orbit supported by Pakistan so that to make himself last indefinitely in power. He's doing that blatantly. He's doing that openly. So to think that we are going to try and prevent him from going into the Chinese orbit is not correct, because that has already happened and he's using the Chinese pressure for this. Now, whether we are constrained because of the present state of relations between India and China, I don't know. But I do think that for our own regional interests, for our own interests about safety and and security in the Northeast India, in West Bengal, in all this region, we have to be very clear on what we tell the Yunus regime, and we have to be very clear that if the Yunus regime does not abide by what we are saying, I don't think this regime can exist much more. There isn't any popularity for the regime. They're all waiting to see what India's views of the regime are. But I think today the way in which Prime Minister Modi has very categorically stated his views to Md Yunus was certainly looking very nervous during that meeting. You know, the papers in his hand was fumbling away and so on. So obviously he has got a very strong message today from Prime Minister Modi, and it's up to him to see what he will do about it. And if he doesn't, even after this meeting, because Prime Minister Modi has given this meeting after repeated pressure from the Md Yunus regime, and he has explained categorically and very frankly what India's concerns are. Now, if the Md Yunus regime is not going to, even now, we are not going to abide by India's security red lines, then I think we certainly have to think of very specific action.
Now, what would that specific action be? Because, frankly, if Md Yunus is talking about India's Siliguri corridor area in whale terms, should we look at it as a threat? When he talks about the Northeast being, the Seven Sisters being landlocked and cut off, and Bangladesh being guardian of the ocean, and External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar, showed him a mirror very clearly that 6,500 kilometers is our coastline in the Bay of Bengal region, and 7,500 kilometers across the length and breadth of India is a massive coastline. But I want to understand from you, if he's talking about seeking Chinese investment to make a military base near the Chicken's Neck area and getting Pakistan there, as you said, this clearly is one, not friendly. It's clearly a very hostile act that he's contemplating.
It is a hostile action. We have to recognize it as such, and we have to call it out as such. We are not going to allow Chinese labor, Chinese people, Pakistani generals to roam around in that Siliguri corridor area. I think we have to draw up those red lines, because this just cannot be done. And I think that even further calling out of the statement on the Northeast is important. We have done that. Our External Affairs Minister, on the statement made yesterday in BIMSTEC ministerial meeting in Bangkok, was very clear. He said there's no cherry picking allowed in this. It has to be a holistic, integrated relationship. As part of this holistic, integrated relationship, certainly Chinese or Pakistani presence in Lalmunirhat near the Siliguri corridor is not going to be acceptable. We have to lay down the red lines on that. And this is where we have to come and clear. And, in our talks between the two army chiefs, I think it would be a good idea for the army chief of Bangladesh to visit India and to understand from India what our concerns were. At one time, there was a lot of talk about the army chief visiting India. But we do know that in the meanwhile, even the Pakistanis were conniving with certain elements in the Bangladesh army to try and replace the army chief. So you can imagine the lengths to which Pakistan is ready to go to establish their control. They think they are in the pre-71 era. They think that, there's no longer any question of liberation anymore. And this is once again East Pakistan for them. I think the people of Bangladesh are not ready for this at all. They do not want, they are proud people, they are sovereign nation. They are very proud of the history of the liberation war and their successes as an independent country, the economic successes they have achieved. They're proud of that and they want to continue with that. And they do realize that a good relationship with India is mutually beneficial. And Bangladesh.
And Geeta, have there been any indications whatsoever, because Ambassador Sikri very clearly points out that some of the actions of the Bangladeshi government in the past 8 months have been unfriendly and some instances clearly very hostile. Any indications that they will mend their ways or they think that they will use that Pakistan card and China card against us like Md Yunus tried when he went to Beijing recently?
Well, I don't see them mending their ways. I only see them changing or shifting a little in what they're saying and how they're saying it. Look, this was a gesture in itself that Bangladesh sought the meeting with the Indian Premier. They could have done without a meeting, given the kind of statements they're making. And the hostile or not so friendly statements came not so very long ago. He was in Beijing and he spoke about how Bangladesh is the hub, Northeast is landlocked, and so almost saying that India needs Bangladesh for the northeastern states. Dr. Jaishankar responded to that saying that it is Northeast that's the hub, and if they need connectivity and if they need to expand, then Bangladesh requires this entire region that is part of India. That was the response of India. So that's only just one of the many things that have happened. There are important relations and important connections that they're trying to make with various countries, balancing America and China, now getting closer to China because the administration in Washington DC has changed. So it is not for India right now, Gaurav, to be navigating this space. I think right now Bangladesh is in a very difficult position. They are trying to figure out how to get out of this one and hold an election and have a smooth transition of power and have someone in Dhaka who would be close to the people who are in power right now, and that Yunus will not be incarcerated. Remember, there are cases against him. So one will again have to wait and see how he navigates this space.
No, but this radical Islamists who've been unleashed in Bangladesh, they've been kept in check to an extent by Sheikh Hasina's regime. Though temples were targeted even then, it remains to be seen whether these elements can be locked up once again, or there will be a challenge for whatever administration or regime comes in Dhaka. Ambassador Sikri and Geeta, stay with me. Ambassador Sikri, many thanks for joining me. I now want to shift focus to that big story. The Prime Minister's second leg of his visit is now to Sri Lanka. News just coming in, the Prime Minister has concluded his visit to Bangkok, to Thailand. The Prime Minister's next stop is Sri Lanka. And this again is a very, very important leg of his visit. It's a 3-day visit to boost diplomatic ties and defense ties between India and Sri Lanka. There are civilizational ties between India and Sri Lanka, and I'm not talking about right from the times of Maryada Purushottam Sri Ram when he went to Lanka to get Devi Sita back, and that's the time that Ravan was killed, but also the Buddhist link. Very, very important. We'll talk about that in greater detail. I quickly want to bring Geeta Mohan, who joins us from Colombo on the story. Geeta, the Bangkok visit, the BIMSTEC Summit, very important because BIMSTEC is something that India conceptualized and is taking forward, but India-Sri Lanka ties, very crucial civilizationally, but Sri Lanka also now realizes India is a friend in need. When they were going through bankruptcy, I was reporting from Colombo that time, India's help saw them tide over that tough spot, and they said India is truly a real friend, a friend in need.
Right, that's right. You can see the flags behind me, the Indian flag and the Sri Lankan flag. India Today has been reporting since morning from here. He is going to go to the IPKF memorial as well. Our colleague Nagarjun Dwarkanath, who's also with me in Colombo, and will be traveling to Anuradhapura, went and filed a report from there. Important, significant, he is arriving late tonight. There is an entire Indian community. Let me just pan the camera and show you. They're getting the security clearances. They're all going to come in and wait for Prime Minister Modi and to receive Prime Minister Modi. We will try to get in touch and speak with them. They're just going through security. So once the security clearances are done, we'll try getting them on our network as well. I'll see if they want to come and speak with us. Are you here for Prime Minister Narendra Modi? Are you here to meet Prime Minister Modi? Yeah. And are you from here?
Yeah.
All right. How is it? How excited are you that Prime Minister Modi is the first foreign leader who's coming to Sri Lanka?
Yeah, very happy to see Mr. Modi.
And any expectations? What are your expectations on India-Sri Lanka ties? Do you expect the ties to become better?
Yeah, to be better in Sri Lanka.
Okay. What about you, sir?
Very happy to
Okay, very happy that Prime Minister Modi's come to Sri Lanka. There are just few of them, Sri Lankans who are here, mostly would be from the Tamil community, but also Sinhalese. Things are changing here in the country as well, Gaurav. So you have the flags behind me, massive banners. welcoming Prime Minister Modi, and then you have people over here. There is going to be a welcome and a little surprise, I'm told, for Prime Minister Modi when he steps into the Taj Samudra Hotel. Excited lot, some of them I met inside, but we will again try getting hold of them. Tonight, it's only going to be him coming, being welcomed by the people over here, some from the Tamil community, some Sri Lankans, and then tomorrow is the big day. He's going to the IPKF memorial. There is restricted level talks with President Dissanayake. There are delegation level talks, and most importantly, since the IPKF disaster, for the first time, Gaurav, we will be looking at an MOU on defense between India and Sri Lanka. That's
extremely crucial, extremely critical. Geeta, stay with me as I bring in Nagarjun Dwarkanath into this conversation. And Nagarjun, the Prime Minister had taken to social media platform X to say, my visit to Sri Lanka will take place from the 4th to the 6th. The visit comes after the successful visit of President Anura Kumara Dissanayake to India. We will review the multifaceted India-Sri Lanka friendship and discuss newer avenues of cooperation. I look forward to the various meetings there. So take us through these newer areas of cooperation that India and Sri Lanka are looking at.
Gaurav, if you can hear me, it's not just the defense sector, but the MOU that being signed we are talking about. There is also trade that will be on talks, on cards, and also digitization. UPI has already made inroads here in Sri Lanka. How can they take it to a large scale? That will be discussed as well. And also, how will the US tariffs affect Sri Lanka? Can India be the market for Sri Lankan products to be taken and imported? These are the sectors that the Indian Sri Lankan officials and also the Prime Minister and the President would be talking about. And like Geeta mentioned, definitely the MOU in the defense sector is the big takeaway. Prime Minister would be here tomorrow also. Throughout the day, he would be having diplomatic talks. In the evening, he would go to the Indian Peacekeeping Force monument and pay the respects to the soldiers who have lost their lives in the 3 years from 87 to 90. And he would from there come back here and would staying back in Colombo. And the next day he would be going to Anuradhapura on the April 6th, where he would be visiting the Bodhi tree, which is presumed or believed that a branch from the Patna or the Bihar of the where Buddha got enlightened, the same tree was brought here. A branch was brought here by the daughter of King Ashoka, and from here he will fly back to Rameshwaram in Tamil Nadu on the 6th morning. That's the schedule for the Prime Minister over the 3 days.
And how symbolic, Geeta, this civilizational relationship between India and Sri Lanka, Bharat and Sri Lanka. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Dissanayake, they'll together travel to that very historic city of Anuradhapura and visit the Mahabodhi temple. So for the benefit of our viewers, and I believe both of you or one of you would be at Anuradhapura, tell us more about this civilizational link, the spread of Buddhism, not just in Sri Lanka, but Thailand and across Southeast Asia. So that belt and Sri Lanka becomes extremely important.
Well, Naga will be in Anuradhapura. He will be first giving us a sense, Gaurav, of what that place is all about, the historical connect, the cultural context of the place for India and for Sri Lanka. But it is not just that. Look, where is Prime Minister Modi coming from? His last important visit in Thailand was to a monastery, a very important Buddhist monastery, one of the highest levels of monasteries and symbol of Buddhism in Thailand, which is Wat Po. And from there he's coming to Sri Lanka, another predominantly Buddhist country. And here he's again going to meet with the Buddhist leaders and monks, go to the monastery, go visit the Bodh Gaya, the tree that came from the Bodh Gaya tree, the original tree. There is a lot of pilgrimage that's involved over here, Gaurav, when it comes to India and Sri Lanka. A lot of Buddhists do travel to Sri Lanka and to Anuradhapura, and then you will see a lot of Sri Lankans really travel to Bihar, to Gaya, to visit Bodh Gaya. So that
in fact,
historical
Buddhism is a
cultural
very,
connect,
very
and not
important link. You're absolutely right. It's such an important link that civilizationally binds Bharat to Sri Lanka, to Thailand, to so many countries across Southeast Asia. But while on the one hand, Nagarjun, it's all about the civilizational links, it's also about the solar energy project at Sampur, a joint inauguration of various India-assisted projects. So this becomes very crucial, a civilizational relationship that goes ahead in the 21st century. Nagarjun, can you hear me? With Nagarjun Dwarkanath in just a moment. So the two leaders will witness this virtual groundbreaking of the Sampur solar energy project, and they will jointly inaugurate two India-assisted projects. So Nagarjun, it's not just civilizational relationship from Anuradhapuram. They will talk about solar energy, they'll talk about UPI, they'll talk about technology cooperation, artificial intelligence. So this is a huge leg up when it comes to the relationship between India and Sri Lanka.
That's absolutely true. I think this trip of the Prime Minister will have a lot of takeaways, not just the defense sector, but also culturally going to Anuradhapura. This is not the first time that the Prime Minister is visiting Anuradhapura. This is the second time. Remember, Anuradhapura is also dominated by the Sinhalese community. It's not just the Tamils dominating in the north, but Anuradhapura is a small town, very sacred to the Sinhalese and the Buddhist community here. It's a link between the north and the south and the west as well. So it comes literally in the center of the country. Prime Minister would be traveling there and from there to Rameshwaram and virtually inaugurating the Sampur NTPC power plant, the thermal power, the solar power plant. The first in history that at this scale that a solar power plant would be inaugurated by the Prime Minister. And also on the cards would be further about how can they expand the grid, the interconnectivity between the countries in terms of grid structure. All this will be on the talks, and a lot of MOUs to be signed in terms of energy as well, energy department as well. So a lot of takeaways in the next three days for India and Sri Lanka as well. What's special is also this is the first time that Prime Minister is the first foreign dignitary or the delegate who is visiting Sri Lanka after the new regime took over. President Dissanayake, since he's taken over, he made a visit to India, and now Prime Minister Modi coming here is special message to the Lankans, and also how no matter which government is in power, India will have a good relation with every neighbor, as it says neighborhood first policy.
Very interesting. Stay with me, both of you, and both Geeta and Nagarjun have been filing a number of reports from Ground Zero. Let's get you some of these reports.
Maybe other countries might be neighbors to India, but we always see India as a big brother to Sri Lanka because all the people living here are one day of Indian origin. We can never forget the support India extended to Sri Lanka during the crisis, and I would also like to remember that Indian government, beyond what they can do, they did for Sri Lanka. India plays a major role in especially the Tamil residing areas. So the Tamil people are more happy to welcome him. He is a fatherly figure, not only to the Indians in India, but also to the overseas Indians.
We are, after all, civilizational twins. So to that extent, this is a very natural thing to happen, and it's very symbolic and positive. This visit, the fourth visit of Sri Narendra Modi, could be history defining, because then it could really determine the economic closeness between two civilizational twins. No, I don't think so. I mean, see, China is a reality for the world. China is there everywhere. China is in India too. I mean, I was looking at some data saying that India is actually one of the biggest, one of India's biggest bilateral trade partners is actually China.
He's the first foreign leader to come to Sri Lanka after the new president has taken over power. He was also the first, he went to India on his first foreign trip in December last year. So it is, in that sense, a very, very important visit. We are, as you would recall, we had a very good outcome in December 2024. So we are taking forward the elements of that understanding.
Breaking news coming in from Beijing. China is imposing 34% reciprocal tariff on all imports from the United States of America. This comes into effect from the 10th of April. So China had warned the United States the moment US puts tariffs on Chinese goods export to the US, China will respond in kind and immediately. So from the 9th, when US starts imposing tariffs on Chinese exports to the US, from the 10th of April, within 24 hours, China will impose 34% tariffs on all US exports to China. On Wednesday, Donald Trump had unveiled an additional 34% tariff on all Chinese goods imported into the United States of America. Now, this will lead to a major reset in relations. It will worsen trade tensions between the two of the world's largest economies. Now, the Chinese have said, and I quote, "This practice of US is not in line with international trade rules. It seriously undermines China's legitimate rights and interests, and it is a typical unilateral bullying practice." This is China's State Council Tariff Commission. They said that in a statement as they announced retaliatory tariffs. Now, since returning to power in January, Trump had already levied twice 10% additional duties on all Chinese imports, which the White House said was necessary to stem the flow of illicit fentanyl from China to the US, and this means Chinese goods arriving in the US would effectively be subject to 54% tariffs. China's retaliation against the latest round of US tariffs are more sweeping than its earlier reciprocal action. Beijing had responded to those two previous levies swiftly, but that time it was moderate, imposing retaliatory tariffs on targeting US goods, including agricultural products and fuel, taking action against certain American firms and ramping up export controls. But this time, 54% tariffs are higher than what many analysts had expected, and said this will fundamentally reshape relations, and roughly $500 billion in trade between the two economies after decades of interdependence will be impacted. So I want to cut across to Karishma Sudani, who joins us for more on this story, joins us from Business Today. Karishma, was this expected in these terms? 54% effective US tariffs on Chinese imports and 34% Chinese imposing tariffs on US exports. What does this mean for the two countries and for world economy?
Very much on the expected lines, because we all know that US and China both have been at the helm of a trade war, not just in terms of the tariffs that have now been announced, but for the past few months, especially since Donald Trump has taken over as president. The idea has been to keep China aside, and it was since the minute that US had announced the reciprocal tariffs, China took an immediate stand saying that they will go for a reciprocal tariff pact. So it's a situation of a trade war that is happening, and well expected by a lot of economists who said that the US will get it back, especially from those strong economies who know that they can survive without a lot of interdependence. On terms of global scale, not a good move. From economy point of view, this could not do well, because ideally the whole point of tariff debate was because of US expressing their economic uncertainty and instability and depending so much on exports. But now it's going to go a step ahead, and it could actually cause a major disruption when it comes to supply chains, because if two major economies are on a loggerheads, it's not going to be easy, but could be a silver lining for India.
Very interesting. You mentioned that this could be a silver lining for India, but are we nimble-footed to step in? Karishma, are we poised to step in? Everyone's been talking since COVID 2020 about China plus one supply chain. Has India done anything in the past 5 years there?
Gaurav, I recently was speaking to an economist and also a very well-known member of Niti Aayog, who told me that we were never China plus one, we were China plus 5. And that kind of fits the bill. We were after Vietnam, after Taiwan. It's just that we were expecting to be China plus 1. But in terms of technology and manufacturing, we will take a lot of years to be there, but it is a good step for us to now step in and try to take over. Difficult which country we are going to side with, because we've already taken a neutral stance. We have never really tried to go against anybody. Interesting to watch out where will the government see the best gain out of.
Fair enough. Keep tracking that story, Karishma. I will come back to you for more for the moment. Karishma Sudani, many thanks. As Donald Trump announced tariffs, the Dalal Street saw red. The Sensex crashed 827 points to 75,468. Nifty tumbled 304 points to 22,945. So the Indian stock market, it's sinking with investors losing over 10 lakh crore amidst this broad-based sell-off. Stocks such as Tata Motors, Tata Steel, Sun Pharma, L&T, RIL, IndusInd Bank, RIL, they led to losses on Sensex falling up to 5%. So of the 30 Sensex stocks, 22 were trading in the red. The Supreme Court verdict on West Bengal government job scam has invalidated 26,000 jobs. The Mamata Banerjee government has challenged the Supreme Court order. It's blaming the BJP of playing a role in influencing the decision. The BJP is escalating its criticism against Mamata Banerjee. It's labelled Mamata Banerjee Hitler, saying Bengal is most corrupt under her. We get you more in this report. The political war in Bengal has intensified after the Supreme Court upheld the Calcutta High Court order sacking more than 25,000 teachers hired by the West Bengal School Services Commission in 2016. Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee criticized the Supreme Court judgment that said that irregularities had tainted the selection process beyond resolution.
As a citizen of this country, I have every right. আমি কিন্তু জাজকে রেসপেক্ট করে বলছি, আমি জাজমেন্টটা মেনে নিতে পারছি না। এতগুলো টিচারের ভবিষ্যৎ ভুলে যাবেন না, এরা সবাই স্কুলে পড়ায়, স্কুলগুলোর কি হবে? এডুকেশন সিস্টেমটাকে কোলাপস করা কি বিজেপি গভর্নমেন্টের টার্গেট?
The BJP intensified its attack on Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee, calling her a dictator. The principal opposition party demanded Mamata Banerjee's arrest. The BJP also raked up former minister Partha Chatterjee's alleged role in the cash for jobs scam, where a huge stash of cash was found at a house of a close aide of Partha Chatterjee. The central investigation agencies had seized over 50 crore rupees from flats allegedly owned by a key aide of Partha Chatterjee.
किसी मुख्यमंत्री की हिम्मत हो सकती है ऐसे? वो सुप्रीम कोर्ट के लिए कहे कि हम सुप्रीम कोर्ट के ऑर्डर को नहीं मानेंगे। दिस इज हिटलरशिप। ये होता है डिक्टेटरशिप। दीदी जेल जाएंगी, अलबत्त जाएंगी। हिंदुस्तान में कानून का शासन है।
The Supreme Court in its order on Thursday ruled that the teacher selection process was marred by fraud and manipulation and directed the Bengal government to start a new selection process and finish it within 3 months.
ये जजमेंट नहीं हो, ये बहुत गलत हुआ। यही बस बोलना है कि हम लोग कोई गलती नहीं की तो किस बात की पनिशमेंट? अब गलती प्रूफ करो।
हाई कोर्ट में कोई केस में मतलब किसी को साथ अनजस्टिस होगा तो उन्होंने तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट को जाएगा ना जस्टिस के लिए, लेकिन वहाँ पे भी सेम इनजस्टिस हुआ मेरे खिलाफ।
As a result of the court verdict, thousands of meritorious candidates have also lost their jobs. The court suggested that affected candidates could appear for tests again.
All eyes are now on Mamata Banerjee's crucial meeting with a majority of these candidates who are going to sit before the Chief Minister next week in a process to deliberate and find out what could be a possible solution for this mess. With camera person Sham Sundar Ghosh, Indrajit, for India Today in Kolkata.
Well, that is all we have time for on 5 Live this evening. Many thanks for watching.